Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
I didn't know this yesterday, but they called me a hurricane denier all over social media last night. Did you guys know anything about that? What? I didn't either. I'm minding my own business. I hadn't even turned. It was at 10:30 last night. I had not even turned on the TV. I was too busy. By the way, greetings. Rush Limbaugh here, the EIB network, now in the direct target area of Hurricane Irma. Anyway, it's 10:30 last night. I got a note from our old buddy Eric Erickson. And it says, passing this along, it goes live in the morning at 5 a.m. on his website, theresurgent.com. And it says, everybody freaked the hell out over Rush Limbaugh yesterday, but he was right. So what is this? You know, I didn't know a thing about this. I got zilch feedback about this. I mean, none. Well, I didn't get any feedback about anything yesterday. I never get feedback about anything anymore. To be totally frank. I go home and that's it. So I get this note from Eric. It says a hurricane denier. They called him on social media yesterday. Rush Limbaugh started a show talking about Hurricane Irma. And liberals, along with a number of Republicans who've decided talk radio's the enemy, freaked the hell out. But did they actually listen to it? And he goes on to tell me what happened here. And apparently, you know that reporter that got clocked by the Republican out in North Dakota, Ben Jacob? Well, apparently this guy heard, well, I don't think any of these people actually listened. They probably got an out-of-context, erroneous report of things I didn't say yesterday. And he tweeted that I am a hurricane denier, which, by the way, does that not prove that these people are using this storm to advance the climate change agenda, which is one of my focal points yesterday? And that apparently caused an eruption in various sectors of social media. And so Eric wrote a piece here to try to set these people straight, to tell them what exactly happened on the program yesterday versus what they... I know they're not going to read that. Well, they might. I mean, Eric is on social media, and we here, of course, at the EIB network have steadfastly maintained a safe distance from that cesspool. So we're not there. That's why I don't get any feedback on it. But, I mean... all I did yesterday, this is the thing, folks, it is so frustrating. And it's actually getting more and more frustrating. You can't, when these people who are so emotionally invested, emotionally, not intellectually, so emotionally invested in an event and in an outcome, when they are, you can't get to them with the truth. In fact, the truth is the greatest enemy they face, and they treat it that way. They reside in these little self-made cocoons where they safely are hidden away from anything that challenges their emotional construct. And if something permeates the cocoon, and I have a practiced way of permeate, I know how to permeate emotional cocoons. I do it well as the mayor of Realville. And they just freak out. Anyway, there was a story about it today in the Daily Beast, which is left wing, not the Daily Caller. In the headline, Limbaugh, Hurricane Irma coverage is liberal media plot to advance climate change agenda. And then they go on and they fairly accurately report what I say, and they even mention that I constantly pointed out that I was not a meteorologist, which I did yesterday. I didn't say that anything I'm predicting here has any authority. I didn't say I'm trying to replace the Hurricane Center or any of these experts. I'm just telling you how I analyze their data, which we are still free to do. I analyze their data a little differently than they do. Now, the situation here in South Florida is dire. The governor, Rick Scott, is asking certain people to begin evacuation plans. Hurricane Harvey is supposed to hit Miami Sunday morning at 8 a.m. with 145-mile-an-hour winds and come right up and dead hit West Palm Beach and Wellington at 130 miles an hour and then keep going north. Now, if you look, that yesterday at this time, the Hurricane Center had Key West as the target. The day before that, it was an entirely different target. But if you study this, as I do, you will find that from the beginning of coverage of Hurricane Irma, Florida has always been in what would be the cone, the long-range cone. And all I'm telling you is that I think there are reasons for that beyond meteorology. That's all. I'm not going to waste your time repeating everything I said yesterday because most of you were here and heard it. Last night, before the 11 o'clock update happened, everybody was looking at the Hurricane Center forecast track and thinking, okay, it's going to hit Naples, maybe further west offshore and head on up to the Gulf, like Mississippi, Louisiana. And I was chatting with people. I said, this is not what's going to happen. They can't move the track where they really want to move it yet because the track is dependent on many things, primarily on all of the different hurricane models. You've probably been to enough websites where I have these spaghetti models, but you have to know that not all those models are paid attention to by the Hurricane Center. You have to, over years and years of diligent study, you have to figure out which models they find credible. I know this. You have to find which models they give weight to and others that they ignore. I know this because of 20 years of study. As a resident of South Florida, this stuff matters to people like me who live here. I'll just tell you this. I was having a chat with someone you all know last night, whose name I'm not going to mention. We were making bets with each other, and I made a prediction. I said, when we wake up, this is after the 11 o'clock track had moved it close to Naples and Fort Myers and moved it off of Key West. And I said, I'm going to tell you exactly we're going to wake up 5 a.m. tomorrow, and that track is going to split the state in two. It's going to come right up the center of the state of Florida. And damned if that isn't what happened. But I told him that's not the news. The news is at 11 o'clock tomorrow, West Palm Beach is going to be dead hit. I told my buddy this is midnight last night. And lo and behold, that's exactly where the track is right now. We are still 4 to 5 days out when talking about impact on South Florida. And if you look at the discussion page at the National Hurricane Center's website where you find the graphics, the forecast maps, they have updates, advisories, and they have a discussion that they issue every 6 hours. And every discussion mentions that when you're looking at the track, days 4 and 5 usually have an error, an average error that they apply of 175 to 225 miles, which is why their cone is that big, that far out, because they really can't predict. So this track is, my point, the track's going to move again. I don't know where the track's going to end up. Most of the models do not have the hurricane hitting Florida. There's still a few that do, and there's an outlier or two that have it going due west through the Florida Straits, due west and up into the Gulf. The Hurricane Center is ignoring those models, and if you look at the cluster of models they pay attention to, it almost looks like a repeat of last year's Hurricane Matthew. Remember that one? Hurricane Matthew was making a beeline for Florida, and then about 50 miles out, it turned north, and it paralleled the Florida East Coast on its way north. And I remember all kinds of people, this is fascinating too. It missed us. And everybody I know who knows where I live called me breathlessly, "Did you get much damage?" I said, "No, it missed us." "Oh, no, it was a direct hit. I saw it on TV. It was a direct..." No, it missed us. It remained offshore. It didn't come ashore till way north up in Florida. Oh, good. I could have sworn I saw it was a direct hit. I was so worried. No. We could wave at it out there on the upper deck of the second floor. We could wave at it as it went by. Really? Yeah. Now, this is much stronger hurricane than Matthew. They claim right now that it's 175 mile an hour winds, gusting to 225, 55 miles east of, I think, St. Thomas. Is it St. Thomas? Maybe. Yeah, St. Thomas. And it's barreling toward it. By the time it reaches Florida, the strength is going to be down to 145, 135, with gusts even higher. But we're still, what is this, Wednesday? And they're forecasting 8, I don't have it right in front of me, 8 a.m. Sunday, I think, for Miami. Wednesday, Thursday. So we're still 4 or 5 days out from this thing. So it's, this track is going to change again. But even with the vast movement of the forecast track in the last 3 days, if you go back, I keep all these screenshots. I do overlaps, I comparisons. The track movement in the last 3 days is like one of these spaghetti models. It's all over the place. And so it's going to continue to move. And even the Hurricane Center, with their admission that there's a 175, 225 mile error, usually an error. That's the average distance of the error that is made, because you can't forecast these things precisely until it's like 6 hours out. 6 hours, 12 hours out, they can give you pretty good. But even then, even 12 hours out, it can take a totally different tack, not having a model to suggest and surprise you. Now, don't confuse this with climate change, because climate change, they can tell you what the sea level is going to be in 50 years. I mean, they have no doubts what the sea level is going to be in Manhattan, South Florida, in 50 years. The direction of the hurricane, 6 hours out, beyond that, it's the best guess that they can put together. And that's what it is. And there's a way of illustrating this. One of my favorite things to read is a weekly article by Greg Easterbrook, who is an environmentalist wacko, by the way, and you have to know this, and I know this, and it doesn't factor. He writes a piece called Tuesday Morning Quarterback. Used to be at ESPN, then at the New York Times. Now he's published in the Weekly Standard every Tuesday. And he had... His piece yesterday was the first piece before the NFL season begins, and that's where everybody makes their predictions. He had a long section in Tuesday Morning Quarterback debunking the entire notion of predicting sporting events, individual games, who's going to win the Super Bowl, the utter futility of it, and how nobody ever really gets it right. And his analogy was all of the data experts forecasting the 2016 election. He just smears Nate Silver and all of these pollsters and all of these big data analysts as nothing but a bunch of dressed up, wild guessers. He doesn't hit them personally. I'm sure he likes them. They're on his team. But he makes brilliant points. I'm going to share it with you during the program today because it's fascinating. And in fact, you know what? When you read this, when I read this, I understood even better why the left has gone insane. Because they believed all of this. Nate Silver says Hillary's got a 90% chance of winning. Hillary's got a 65% chance of winning. Hillary's got an 84%. The Huffington Post, the same thing. The New York Times, they were all issuing these percentages based on their big data analysis, and they were all wrong. And I remember making the point during the campaign, these people are falling victim to their own side's dishonesty. They can't be precise with it, but they've got these reputations as big data analysts that they know more than anybody else. And when they make these predictions, Hillary has a 91.1% chance. You put the decimal point in there and it adds credibility and authority, but means nothing. These people believed all of their big data gurus, and every one of them got it wrong, and every one of them wasn't even close. And these gurus, these big data gurus, are like gods to people on the left. That's why they felt betrayed. How many of you watch the FX TV show American Horror Story? None of the staff here on the other side of the glass does. Well, it's produced by a guy named Ryan Murphy, who's gay. And so there's a lot of risque homosexuality in this series. I think they're on season 5. But this season's issue is American Horror Story Cult. And I had heard that the opening scenes in episode 1 are of a bunch of people losing their minds and going nuts watching election night coverage as Trump wins. So I made sure to DVR it and watch it last night. And it's the funniest thing. You need to watch it. It is the funniest thing. You've got people cursing Nate Silver. You got people cursing CNN. You got people shrinking into tears, claiming they can't go on as Trump is announced the winner. One of the characters, I'm not going to believe this. I'm not going to believe it till I hear Rachel Maddow say it. It's not true. It can't be true. And Rachel Maddow finally says it, and they all made fun. And the one Trump supporter is the monster in this series, naturally. The Trump supporter, he puts Cheetos in a blender and then spreads that dust on his face to replicate Trump's orange makeup. That's how big a fan that he is. But he's a nut. He's an absolute Looney Tunes. He's out there shouting, USA, USA, so excited, tearing up his big screen TV. While the other cast members are going absolutely, it's classic. It's classic. They believed it, folks. They believed their big data. They believe their polling data. They believe their drive-by media. They believed all of this. And when you read Easterbrook and his analysis of all this big data, you understand even better why they are still in the throes of a major depression and why they're not coming out of it anytime soon. So there's that. DACA, it has expanded. It has become an even bigger issue than it was yesterday. We're going to have it covered from every angle and then some. We will have ongoing analysis and coverage of the hurricane. Now, one thing I can help you, the Hurricane Center does not change the maps. They have updates. They're going to start them every hour now. But the updates are just going to be progress points. Where is the thing on the map? What's its speed? What's its strength? They don't upgrade the forecast track but 4 times a day on the 5s and 11, 5 a.m., 5 p.m., 11 a.m., 11 p.m. They will do an 8 p.m. update, 2 a.m. update, but they don't change the maps. Now, they might with this storm, because remember, this storm is going to help them reclaim the notion that climate change is bringing back more frequent and stronger storms. Haven't been any storms for 12 years up until this year. So they've lost that element of climate change. Now they've got this giant hurricane in their cell. I can't wait. So they want to get as much out of this as they can to further their climate change agenda. We'll be back. Don't go away. So here's another one I didn't know that happened. The Washington Post, the reporter's Callum Borchers, headline, Rush Limbaugh's dangerous suggestion that Hurricane Irma is fake news. Now, any of you listening to this program 24 hours ago, did I ever say the hurricane wasn't there? Did I ever say it wasn't a big storm? Did I ever call it fake news? I didn't do any of that. I'm convinced Borchers didn't even listen. He maybe read a transcript out of context from a reporting site or what have you. All I did was tell you how the world works. All I did was remind everybody that there are people throughout levels of government that believe in climate change. It's an emotional issue, and they look for any evidence they can to prove it, and they go nuts with it. And that's exactly what's happening here. Remember, big hurricanes. Al Gore said after his first book, after Hurricane Katrina, we're going to have these things all the time, and they're going to get worse and worse and worse because of climate change. Went 12 years without a single one hitting the United States. Well, now 2 of them are hitting, and they can barely contain themselves. They want to be right. And so they're making this, they're milking it for all they can get out of it. More in a moment. Stay with us. How are you? Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Mr. Snerdley told me that he got some notes that Al Joker was ragging on me over this. I'm frankly honored that they pay attention. But listen to this. This is one of the tail ends of one of the paragraphs in this story. More broadly, Limbaugh's bad advice. I didn't give anybody bad advice, by the way. I just shared with people how I analyze this. I gave people great advice, in fact. All these people panicking because there's no bottled water in the stores. What did I say? Get an empty bottle and turn on the tap. There's plentiful tap water in every home out there, in every bathroom out there. You turn on the tap, the one with the C on it, and you'll get cold water coming out of there, corporate water. You'll get corporate what? Millennials don't like corporate and stuff. So if I would have said corporate media, I'd have millennials on my side. If I would have accused them of doing this for profit, I'd have media on my side, millennials. I'm the one that devised ways to end the panic. You know, get this. Down here this morning, over on the West Palm Beach side, a semi-trailer filled with cases of bottled water showed up at a Publix. The cops were called to guard the truck. There was a limit of 4 cases per family permitted to be sold. They had to call the cops. Go home, get an empty bottle, get an empty milk jug, and fill them up by turning on the tap in your sink. And voila, you have water. It doesn't come from a grocery store or in a bottle, but you've got water. And it's there, right now in your house. I think that's pretty good advice. I think it's pretty compassionate advice. I think it's pretty sensible advice. But I got tarred and feathered. You know, after Hurricane Harvey, which really was Flood Harvey, am I dreaming it? Or were there countless stories in the drive-by media asking if climate change made it possible? The idea that these people are not using these severe weather events to push their political agenda is absurd. Of course they are. You talk to anybody that'll be honest with you, that's worked in TV news, and they will tell you that when major weather events happen, they were ordered to hype them. It's ratings. Why do you think reporters stand out in the middle of snowstorms to tell you it's snowing? To hype it. It's all about ratings. And then they tell you to what? Make sure you got chains. Where do you get chains? Home Depot. Then they make sure to tell you got this or that. Make it a shovel. Where do you get a shovel? Then they make sure to tell you have all the, where do you get batteries? Grocery store. Then check who's advertising on the local TV. There's nothing wrong with it. It's the way it works. And what completes the circle is money. It's always been money. It will always be money. Now, there are people, I am in it not for the money. I'm in it for the cause. Right. Well, you may be, but you're an outlier. Anyway, back to this paragraph. More broadly, Limbaugh's bad advice reveals the metastasizing nature of fake news attacks on the media, which have been led by President Trump. How did we get from Trump's claim that he's never seen more dishonest media than, frankly, the political media to the idea that weather reports are phony, too? Mr. Borchers, do you want to challenge the idea? You want to challenge the notion that weather media and sports media are any different than the news media? They're all media. They're all journals. They all come from the same schools. They all come from the same schools of thought. And if you don't believe in climate change, you get fired from these various TV meteorology jobs, or you can. It's happened. Limbaugh, a fellow Trump booster, didn't say the deep state causes storms, but he did say, quote, you have people in all these government areas who believe man is causing climate change, and they're hell-bent on proving it. They're hell-bent on demonstrating it. They're hell-bent on persuading people of it. Yeah, I did. I did say that. That's exactly right. I didn't call it a fake hurricane. I didn't say it was fake news. I said I wasn't a meteorologist. And I said it was a serious storm. I was simply talking about the coverage. What did Al Joker say? You have any, what Al Joker, he's just ragging on me for that. See, folks, when they're in their little cocoon of safety, where they have their own worldview built, and everybody in the cocoon feels and thinks the same way, anything that challenges it causes a panic or anger and a need to lash out at the denier. You see this all over the place. It's epitomized by snowflakes on college campus, young kids who can't deal with opposing point of view. They are the real fascists. They are the real intolerant ones among us. I did not say anything yesterday that was untrue. Nor did I tell people not to worry, nor did I tell people not to be concerned, nor did I say that the hurricane is fake news, and I didn't say the deep state is steering it. They did. The left had people saying that George W. Bush wanted Hurricane Katrina to ravage Louisiana, to rid it of Democrats. They do these things. So, that's that. Before we get to the DACA news and the debt limit and a whole bunch of I told you so. Oh, and before we get to in-depth, I've got to share with you the analysis of all this big analytic data that Greg Easterfield got into yesterday at Tuesday Morning Quarterback, because it's choice. And Mr. Easterbrook, I don't mean to be damaging your career by promoting your work. I mean, he's an environmentalist wacko. He believes in this climate change stuff. Very, 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 very scholarly, bright guy. But it might not, his friends might rag on him by having me promote his work. So I just apologize in advance. Can I share with you two headlines that are in the news today that you're never going to see this anywhere? Not with the hurricane out there, not with DACA out there, not with kids being killed out there, you're not going to see this. Here's the first headline. UK Daily Mail. Mr. Snerdley, put him on hold. I want you to hear this. Transgender rapist who was moved to women-only jail despite still having a penis is segregated after making unwanted sexual advances on female inmates. What a headline. Let me read this to you. We got a transgender rapist who was moved to a women-only jail despite still having a penis is segregated finally after making unwanted sexual advances on female inmates. He's a male to female transgender, and he attacked a bunch of women inmates in there. They put him in there even though he still has a penis, and now they've had to segregate him. Here's the next headline from the College Fix. Ecosexual professor spurs movement. Have sex with Earth to save it. This is a professor at Infobabe at the UC Santa Cruz. Her name is Elizabeth Stevens. 4 years ago, she filmed a documentary called Ecosexual Love Story, in which she and her partner licked trees, played with mud, and made love with the environment while naked. We told you about that. I remember this when it happened. We did an environmentalist wacko update on this and everything. And it was from this documentary. She and her partner licked trees, played with mud, made love with the environment while naked. The term ecosexuality was somewhat unknown, but this documentary gave birth to that term. But then a lot has happened since then, and ecosexuality is not a mystery anymore. Google Trends show interest in the term has increased exponentially over the last 12 months, which means a lot of previously normal people are now searching ecosexuality. And Google is right there with everything they could possibly want. The interest in this can be traced back to the professor at Elizabeth Stevens, UC Santa Cruz, and a leader in the movement that melds art, sex, and environmentalism, a la having sex with a tree or marrying the ocean. Over the summer, this babe co-led an eco-sex walking tour in Germany that offered 25 ways to make love to the earth, raise awareness of environmental issues, learn eco-exercises, find E-spots, like G-spot, only the ecosexuality version of it, with planetary clitoris. You have to go out. They teach you here how to find the planetary clitoris. The planet apparently has got one, and these babes know where it is, and they teach people to watch a documentary how to go find it. Apparently it's in Germany. In May, she helped lead a 2-day eco-sex symposium at the public university. The event included workshops given by professors such as decolonizing settler sexuality, and academic freedom in an eco-sex phobic world. That's why if you don't believe in eco-sex, then you're an eco-sex phobic, like homophobe. And earlier this year, she co-authored the book, The Explorer's Guide to Planet Orgasm for Everybody, which explores various types of orgasms and how to discover them using the Earth's clitoris. All this is not gone unnoticed. It says here the concept was recently featured in Teen Vogue. All of this in your kids' Teen Vogue magazine, which told its young readers about the concept called grassolingus, which was accompanied by a description of a musician laying face down on the grass and licking it. Now, this woman teaches your kids at UC Santa Cruz. This woman undoubtedly believes that Hurricanes Harvey and Irma are part of climate change and the Earth doing something sexually. Whether it's masturbating with water pressure, using eco-friendly lubricant, or literally having sex with a tree, a person of any sexual proclivity who finds eroticism in nature or who believes that making environmentalism sexy will slow the planet's destruction. That's the problem. Not enough of you people are having sex with the planet, the trees, the grass, grassolingus. Not enough of you have found the Earth's clitoris. And until all people are engaged in this, climate change is going to continue at an even more rapid rate. Don't tell me I'm nuts. Man, I'll tell you, we're getting some action out there. Joe Bastardi, who used to be at the Weather Channel, just tweeted that he can assure everyone that no one at the National Hurricane Center uses their climate change beliefs in making forecasts. He didn't mention me, but obviously that's what he's reacting to here. So he's saying it. There's no way. It's not, he knows the people there, and there's no way that they would put their own climate change belief. I'm sure they don't think they are. I'm sure. I'm dead certain that they don't think they are. And Al Joker's tweet. We've got somebody sent me Al Joker's tweet. To have Rush Limbaugh suggest the warnings about Irma are fake. I never said fake, Al. Never used the word fake. To have Limbaugh suggest the warnings about Irma are fake or about profit and to ignore them borders on criminal. I didn't tell anybody to ignore anything, Al. I myself gave my own warnings. I just detailed how the world works, Al, which is undeniable. And now we go to the phones. We're going to start here in Portland, Oregon. Owen, great to have you up first today, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Rush. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I called because you contradicted yourself. You said there hasn't been a storm in 12 years when you, and not 5 minutes before that, you talked about Hurricane Matthew, which was a Hurricane 5 that went up to...
There has not been a major hurricane strike the continental United States in 12 years prior to Hurricane Harvey.
But how do you use that to square? How do you square that with there's no climate change? It doesn't matter if it hits the United States or not.
I'm not squaring it with anything. I'm telling you what they say. I'm telling you, Al Gore and his acolytes, after Hurricane Katrina, took the occasion of Hurricane Katrina and all of that suffering and all of that misery. They're the ones that started warning everybody that Katrina was just the first of many. We were going to have more and more hurricanes like Katrina, and they're going to be stronger and stronger because of climate change. I just listened. Oh, and that's all I did. And then 12 years went by, and there was not a single major hurricane that's Category 3 or above that hit the continental United States for 12 years. It is undeniable. Al Gore was wrong, just like he's wrong about practically everything. But just like Dr. Paul Ehrlich's population bomb in 1976 was wrong about everything, and yet he's still a revered acolyte in the eco-zombie movement, just like Al Gore is. You know where Al Gore's book is, his sequel book? He's at number 23,000 on Amazon. Dr. Roy Spencer, official climatologist here, his book is number 87 on Amazon. And his book it's an e-book. It's on Kindle. It's not even a hardcover published book. And he's running rings around Al Gore's book, which had a major publisher push. And Dr. Spencer's book basically takes issue with many of the claims made by former Vice President and current Apple board member Al Gore. Let me find the title here real quickly. I don't have it tip my tongue. I'll find it, and I'll give it to you after break, because I got to take a break here. I appreciate the call, Owen. Thanks very much. I love the opportunity to set things straight when a very devoted listener to the program doesn't hear correctly what I said. I love the opportunity to correct that. Thank you for giving me that added platform. We will be right back. Dr. Spencer's book is entitled An Inconvenient Deception. It's now at number 44 on Amazon. It's an ebook. I think it's Kindle only. I'm not even sure. I haven't checked. Maybe it's on iBooks on Apple. I haven't checked yet. But anyway, Al Gore's book, Inconvenient Sequel, whatever, is at number 23,000 at Amazon. Dr. Spencer's book at 44. Folks, move it to number 1. It's not expensive. It's an ebook, and it dispels all of or many of the claims that Gore makes in his sequel book. But speaking of Amazon, try this headline, folks. Oops, what did I do with it? Amazon launches African-American movie subscription service, calling it the biggest collection of the baddest African-American movies for Prime members. They're segregating movie sales at Amazon with an African-American movie subscription. I wonder, Snurdly, if that means I could not sign up for it. Greetings, my friends. Welcome back. Well, it was where he talked about pooping his pants at the White House. You think I should? All right. Well, Mamone didn't sound enthusiastic. I got everybody scared today. Greetings, my friends. Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have, even though a hurricane is said to be making a dead aim for my house. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882. If you want to send an email, have at it, lrushbo@eibnet.us. Cookie went back to the Grooveyard of Forgotten Soundbites, which is what we call our archive, January 6, 2013. So what would 4.5 years ago, this is Al Joker, who has said that my suggesting that weather warnings on the hurricane are fake news is near criminal. I didn't say the warnings are fake. Anyway, Cookie was offended by that. Cookie is very offended when people lie about me. So she went back to our archives, our Grooveyard Forgotten Soundbites, found Al Joker from NBC's Dateline. It was a report about his gastric bypass surgery and a trip to the White House. It was Chief Medical Correspondent Nancy Snyderman and Al Joker here.
And when you have a bypass and your bowel has been reconstructed, you think you're pretty safe. And I probably went off and ate something I wasn't supposed to. And as I'm walking to the press room, I think I got to, pass a little gas here. So I'm walking by myself. Who's going to know? Only a little something extra came out.
You pooped in your pants?
I pooped my pants. Not horribly, but enough that I knew. Which
is a common side effect of this surgery.
Exactly. And so...
Are you kidding?
I was panicking. And so I got to the restroom of the press room, threw out the underwear, and just went commando.
And what did that tell you?
It told me that I've got to be very vigilant as to what I eat.
You might want to try being vigilant about what comes out of your mouth, too, Al. For crying out loud, you're on NBC graphically describing in the White House. What? Now, wait a minute, Dawn, are you suggesting this had value for gastric bypass? Oh, she feels bad because this happened to him while at the White House. Fine. How many of you tell NBC and a national audience the things that are unfortunate that happen to you as a means of helping other courses. I would never admit. But anyway, that's Al Joker, who thinks that I have been behaving in a criminal way by referring to hurricane warnings as fake. I didn't do that. Anyway, I thought these people had all forgotten about me. It's been 30 years, and I'm not on TV, and they don't know anything that isn't on TV, except I guess they do. Anyway, great to have you. Once again, telephone number 800-282-2882. I'm not making this up. Wrong headline. Amazon has launched an African-American movie subscription service. It's part of their Prime program, which is a great deal, by the way. Amazon Prime is pretty cool. But they've got a new subscription video on-demand service featuring what they're calling the biggest collection of the baddest African-American movies for its Prime members. Prime customers receive a 7-day free trial to access the service. You know what it's called? The African-American movie subscription service at Amazon is called brownsugar.com. And it's available. What a break. What a break for all of those on welfare who are getting Amazon Prime for half price. What a deal. Speaking, I couldn't believe when I saw this. The state of California has turned down, they voted down a piece of legislation that would have authorized an additional $3 billion in subsidies to manufacturers of electric cars. This includes Tesla. Of all places, California denying subsidy money to Tesla. Tesla is in California. It's one of the hippest ongoing concerns there is. They wouldn't exist if it weren't for subsidies. But that is another story. All right, I know what you're saying. Come on, Rush, get past all this other stuff and get to the issues. I understand. So here we go, straight to the issues. From thehill.com, GOP leaders to give Trump a bitter pill on spending and debt. You know, the big argument now is whether to increase here was the timeline. The timeline was that the debt limit needs to be increased again this fall. And the Democrats and the media were running around, predictably, as they always do, saying that there's going to be a government shutdown if Trump and the Republicans don't raise the debt limit. And then Hurricane Harvey hit. And then the Republicans said, all right, we can raise the debt limit because we need all of these billions of dollars for Hurricane Harvey relief. I think the number on Hurricane Harvey relief that's been authorized is something like $7 billion. And Paul Ryan was on TV today saying, it is silly to suggest that we not raise the debt limit in the face of these hurricane recoveries. Why, these are our fellow citizens. Our fellow citizens are in dire straits. They're in bad consequences. And it would be silly to talk about not raising the debt limit. We couldn't provide much needed aid. So you can see how this is going to play out. The debt ceiling is going to be raised because without it, we wouldn't be able to fund recovery efforts via FEMA and other agencies for Hurricane Harvey. And the headline, Republican leaders to give Trump a bitter pill on spending and debt. Republican leaders are crafting a must-pass bill that will likely infuriate both conservatives and Trump's base. Nothing new about that, folks. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Speaker Paul Ryan are expected to move legislation that'll keep the government funded until December and raise the nation's debt limit high enough to last beyond the 2018 midterms. But guess what's not being funded? Dawn, take a guess. In everything that's going to be paid for by raising the debt limit through the midterms of 2000, that's through next November. What is not being funded here? The wall. Exactly. The wall is not being funded. Now, I said to myself when I saw this, that can't be possible. Because back when the Republican leadership failed to fund the wall in April, Because of a fear the Democrats would shut down the government, the Republicans swore that they were going to make sure the wall was funded in the September budget. Do you remember this? You may not, but don't doubt me. It's exactly what happened. They said they couldn't put the funding for the wall in April because the government shut down. They said they couldn't do it. But they promised. They kicked the can down the road. It would be in the budget in September. And now it's not. Not only is it not going to be in a budget, it's not going to be in any of the spending that's going to be authorized to go through the 2018 midterms. In other words, the incumbent reelection enactment bill, federal spending, debt limit raised and authorized through the 2018 midterms, but no funding for the U.S.-Mexico border wall. Well, that's okay because Mexico's going to pay for it anyway. Trump will find a way around it. The art of the deal. Republican leaders in the Senate will sweeten the deal by adding billions of dollars for Hurricane Harvey relief, but that will not mollify the right on and off Capitol Hill, it says here in the Hill. Yet this type of measure will attract bipartisan support and probably have enough backing to get Trump's desk to his desk in a signature later on. Now, this is a little bit of a feint here because they didn't need the excuse of Hurricane Harvey. The usual suspects would have opposed funding the wall anyway. And they're going to do everything in their power to give amnesty to the DACA kids, who are not kids anymore, by the way. The DACA kids are grown up. Some of them become hardened criminals. Did you know that? Like 30% of them. Story is coming up. Senate leaders are assuming that Trump will sign the legislation into law instead of risking a government shutdown or credit crisis. These are the president's immediate priorities: pass disaster relief, prevent a default, fund the government. They are my immediate priorities as well, McConnell said. We have to get all three of these things done. We have to do it very quickly. Pass disaster relief, prevent a default, and fund the government. Bingo. Done. Raise debt limit, all done and accounted for. No money for the wall. Ann Coulter is having convulsions. Still having convulsions. Started last night when she heard this. It's getting worse. And Mitch, by the way, don't forget the DACA amnesty. That's going to have to go in here too. I'm just kidding, folks. I'm not trying to ruin your day. Let me tell you what's going to happen here. This is so obvious. I mean, even Al Gore watching Hurricane News could figure this out. What if, all of a sudden, out of the blue, Republicans and Democrats in Congress unite and come together, and they do so to save the DACA kids, illegal non-citizens, the children. You know they're going to do this. Trump announces the end of the DACA program, 6-month delay, gives Congress a chance to do something about this legislatively. Now, Trump is in trouble on this because his base believed he was going to get rid of this on day one. This was a day one promise to end Obama's Dreamer program, the DACA, just end it. And he didn't do it. And now he's doing it with a 6-month delay. And you can see this coming. For the first time in Trump's administration, Republicans and Democrats are going to come together, because the Chamber of Commerce wants it to happen, and they're going to pass legislation that amnestizes the DACA kids. You watch. It's going to happen. They will not be able to pass the repeal and replace of Obamacare. They will not be able to get to health care and tax reform because of the urgency of hurricane relief, preventing a government default, and continuing federal spending. Those are the three priorities Mitch McConnell says are his and are also Trump's. So no money for the wall. My prediction, Republicans and Democrats will unify faster than you've ever seen them unify to come up with a bill that grants amnesty to the DACA kids. What if they what if they pass legislation that would not have passed under Obama to save the DACA kids from deportation? Remember what's going to happen here. Folks, this is not pretty because the Trump voter base, millions of Americans, expected Obamacare to be repealed by now and tax reform to be on the table by now, meaning lower taxes. Not only is the repeal and replace Obamacare thing a stink bomb, there is no real tax reform on the table yet. But we're going to have the debt ceiling expanded. We're going to make sure the government doesn't default. We're going to make sure the government spending goes on through the 2018 midterms. No funding for the wall, but we're going to have amnesty for the DACA kids. This, the Trump base is the Trump base, and they're just as devoted to their issues like any other segment of the American voting public. And they have had unwavering faith in Trump. So what he's going to be faced with, let me tell you what's going to happen. Trump has kicked this can down the road 6 months to the Congress. You know what they're going to, my prediction, they're going to pass a piece of legislation that essentially grants amnesty, and they're going to send it to him. And it's going to end up back in his lap on his desk. You know that's what's going to happen. How else can this happen? You know that the establishment wants to stick it to him. The establishment would absolutely love for Trump to sign an amnesty immigration, but even if it is for 5-year-olds, if it's only for 5 people, they would love for Trump to sign it. That's what they're going to try to engineer here. Mark my words. Now, that's not going to come without a cost because the Republicans, God bless them, they never, no matter what happens, they just refuse to understand 2 things. They refuse to get how angry their voters are at them in general, and they refuse to understand that the Democrats and the media are not going to love them after this. The Democrats and the media are not going to respect them if they side with the Democrats and come up with a bill that amnestizes the DACA kids. Republicans aren't going to get a single bit of credit. They're not going to get any love, but they think that they still can. And what's going to happen is that if all of this that I have predicted comes true, they're going to further erode the base. And that is a violation of the current political law number 1. Do not make your base mad. Ask Jeff Flake. Ask Eric Cantor. Ask Hillary Clinton. Ask Paul Ryan. You don't do it. And they're in the process of doing it. I have to take a break. We will continue with much more, and we'll start integrating your phone calls in the whole mix right after this. America's real anchorman and doctor of democracy, Rush Limbaugh, behind the golden EIB microphone. Back to the phones. Chris in Columbus, I'm glad you called. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you, Rush. What I think is that if the GOP want to do themselves a really big favor, this issue, I think, is easily 65-35. The public doesn't want DACA. If they can get it on the 2018 midterm ballot, I think people are opposed to it enough that they could get a bigger turnout of GOP to show up at the ballot box, and that would help them to gain seats because they'd have more GOP actually showing up, and that would vote down DACA. And I really think that actually having Democrats push their base to try to show up to vote DACA would actually discourage some of their base from actually turning out, because there's a lot of people who really don't want DACA.
Yeah, I know. But what do you think the odds are of your idea happening, the Republicans in Congress voting it down?
Well, you mean of Congress voting it down?
Isn't that what you said?
Yeah. I think of Congress. I think Congress should put it on the ballot so they get it out of their hands.
No. No.
See, Right. The thing is that...
No, that can't happen. We don't have a direct democracy here. We don't have national referendums. That's why we elect representatives. It's what a representative republic is. So we don't... Issues never go on federal ballots.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't happen.
Yeah, it would only be if we had a... Yeah, okay. But that would be the thing, is if it was up to the voters...
Chris.
It was up to the people.
Chris, here's the thing. Yeah. The elected, the Republican Party knows, doesn't matter. The Republican Party knows. They know what their base voters' opinion is on any amnesty. They know that Donald Trump got elected on the basis of his immigration policy. They know. It's just they don't care as much what you think as they do what the Chamber of Commerce wants and other donors. They want the DACA kids in the country, and they want the DACA kids to be aware that they're here because of the government, Republicans and Democrats. They want amnestized illegal aliens, immigrants, to be aware that it's government that has made their life in America possible. They know what their voters want. They've got no doubt about it. That's why when they campaign, they tell you what you want to hear. But there aren't such things as national referenda because we do not have a direct democracy. You're probably right that if it were on the ballot, it would go down to a screeching, flaming defeat. But it isn't. Okay, Mayor of Miami. His name is Carlos Jimenez. He has held off on evacuating Miami-Dade. Now, the governor of Florida has suggested that a statewide, or at least a South Florida evacuation commence. But the mayor of Miami-Dade has held off. Now, that fascinates me. And he was waiting till the 11 a.m. update. The 11 a.m. update has Miami and West Palm Beach essentially direct hits. But he's held off here. The story is from noon, so it's after the 11 a.m. Hurricane Center update. And he said the storm's slowing down, giving us a little bit more time, because it's not due to hit till Saturday night, Sunday morning. So there would still be time to evacuate. But I think there are other reasons. When you start evacuating people, you better be an area that large, South Florida, that many people. When you start evacuating, you better be damn certain, because there aren't that many ways out. You got I-95, you got they call it Florida's Turnpike. Not the Florida Turnpike, but Florida's with an apostrophe S in there. Is it possessive? Florida's Turnpike. Then you've got I-75 or boats and airplanes. That's about it. And once that starts in mass, not everybody goes. People who do go are vulnerable. They're leaving all kinds of things and places behind. So an evacuation order is a very, very serious thing when you're going to issue it over that large a population center. So I'm sure he's waiting. I'm sure he's waiting for other hurricane tracks. There'll be the new one out here at 5 o'clock. I'll tell you what everybody's doing. I'll tell you what everybody's doing. If you're following this stuff yourself, you're doing it too. You're looking at websites that show you the model runs. Some of them call them spaghetti models or whatever. But there's so many of them. You have to know which ones the Hurricane Center finds credible. Not all of them are. I mean, there are models out there that have this thing doing loops and circles. Some take it into the Gulf of Mexico, but some, just odd. Some take it down to Cuba. I mean, you got to know what to weed out. After 20 years of study, I have deduced fairly good. It's not automatic, changes every season. But I have learned to figure out how the Hurricane Center values which models they follow from storm to storm. one of the models, for example, the GFS ensemble. Some storms, it's right on the money. Other storms, it's not even close. The UK Met model, which is the UK Meteorological Office, they've given it a lot of weight. It's Hurricane Harvey. The Euro models, the ensembles, have been given a lot of weight. So you just have to know which ones to look at. And a bunch of them are clustered anywhere from 30 to 75 miles east of the Florida East Coast. They're out in the Atlantic. And they've been there almost from the beginning. Some of them moved west and clipped the state. Some of them ran up the middle of the state. But for the most part, the cluster of credible models has been either close to the East Coast or offshore by a significant amount. And they're offshore now on a track similar to last year's Hurricane Matthew. And I'm sure a lot of people are waiting to see. And the hurricane track is the furthest west of all of the models, other than a few outliers. The hurricane track always lags behind where the models are because the people at the Hurricane Center have to analyze all that data, figure out whether they agree with it or not. Then they have to weed through what they think is good model data and what isn't. So they're always lagging on purpose. So I guarantee you there's some people waiting for the 5 o'clock Hurricane Center map to see if they move the track further east. They won't leave the state of Florida in this track. They can't afford to. Why are you smiling? Does this discussion fascinate you? I know. Here's the reason the Hurricane Center cannot. Now, look, any of this, I could be dead wrong about this, but right now that track is right up through Miami, West Palm Beach. That has consequences. It's got people making mad dashes to grocery stores. There are people hoarding water and toilet paper and paper to whatever. I mean, that track, a dead hit Miami, West Palm Beach, has consequences. They can't just move that track in 6 hours, 80 miles, 100 miles off coast. They could, if that's what they really think, but they might have to move it back. We're still 4 days out. So I think that they have to leave it pretty close to where it is, just in case it's right. Nobody knows if it's right now. It's too far out. But now that they have put major population centers right in the bullseye, they have to leave it there for a while because of the consequences it's causing. If they move that track, just a wild guess here, if they move that track 50 miles offshore at 5 p.m., then you're going to have people say, wait a minute, what's going on? And they're going to start questioning it. And the Hurricane Center can't afford for people to not believe what their best forecast is. They can't afford that. So that track is going to be with us for a while. So people are keeping, I don't know if the mayor of Miami is doing this, but you can't, if you're studying this, you can't miss those models out there. And if you're in Florida, you want those models to be right. Now, those models out there, you know where they take it to South Carolina, northeast Georgia, and southwest South Carolina. But that's going to change, too. Now, the people, and the track that it's currently on does the same thing. And the models have, once it turns, wherever it is, it's going to go due north. Most of these models, the credible ones, say this. But I find it fascinating. I think it's a big story that the mayor of Miami is holding off on the evac since the governor has already asked people to do it. Because it's still a long way out, 4 to 5 days, and still anything can happen. You know, if you remember Harvey caught everybody by surprise. I mean, it was out there as a tropical storm in the Gulf. And yeah, there was some news about it. And then seemingly overnight, the thing ramped up and became a Cat 4. And remember when it first became big news, what was the city it was going to cream? Corpus Christi. Now, there was some talk that the outer bands could cause flooding in Houston, but it wasn't a major Houston was not in the original major discussion point. It was always there in the warning area, but Corpus Christi was in the bullseye. And then look what happens. In less than a day and a half, the whole thing shifts. to a focus on Houston because it moved to a certain point and then stopped. It was stationary, dumping all of that rain. The original track never had Houston in it. So that's why this stuff is incredibly difficult to forecast, and including not just the direction but the intensity. You know, how low the pressure is, how much rain it's going to dump. That all depends on the forward-moving speed. And the tracks on Hurricane Harvey, they had it basically doing circles back in the Gulf and coming back to Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi ended up, compared to Houston, with relatively less damage. Corpus Christi is where the media others had to fly into to get to Houston or to get close to it. I mean, while Houston was flooded and the rain was coming down, the sun was shining in Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi was where it was forecast to, and it did, fairly close to that. Here's Leslie Springfield, Missouri. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Hi, Rush.
Hey.
Hey, I appreciate your service to the American people. You're not on foreign soil with a gun, but you're on our soil with logic. And I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate today being under assault the way I am today. I appreciate that.
I have a quick question, and first and foremost, I am a conservative, and I am for Trump. I need to know, though, because liberals throw it in my face. So we talk about how what President Obama did with his executive orders and specifically the DACA, how it was illegal and he did not have the right to do it. What is the difference between what he did and what President Trump is doing with his executive orders? Are Trump's executive orders legal, but the DACA was illegal?
Well, it's a good question. It's a very studied question. It's not true in all cases, but most of Trump's executive orders are simply rolling back Obama executive orders.
Okay.
He's rolling back all of Obama's executive orders on regulations, the EPA. I mean, Obama did more than you ever know. I mean, a lot of what Obama did with executive actions and orders and phone calls, it wasn't reported. And if it was reported, it was celebrated. The media loved Obama. Whatever he was doing was unassailable. It was great. A lot of what Trump has done has been to roll back, like reducing the immigrations, the regulations, like enforcing immigration law. That's all Trump has done. He's not invented new law. He has just, Obama made sure that federal immigration law was not being enforced. Trump's done the opposite. Now, That's not true. I'm sure Trump's had some executive orders that some people might say are extra constitutional. I can't think of what they are off the top of my head, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you there aren't any. But Obama's were almost entirely done because he couldn't get the legislation he needed passed. So he went ahead and did. Obama knew the media wasn't going to rip him. Obama knew the Democrats were going to support him. Obama knew the Republicans were not going to be serious ripping him, and if they did, the media wasn't going to promote it. So Obama had a free rein on this stuff, and he did. Look at what Obama did with the Iran deal. Some of this stuff has got to be rolled back and changed. In fact, there's a couple things I have in the stack today that actually address this if I have time to get to it all. But do you have a point beyond that, or was that just your question?
No, just a question. I didn't understand that, but thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet. We'll find out. I'm sure we'll hear from people who think Trump has gone outside the Constitution. But even the drive-bys have not alleged that. They go after Trump. He don't even know what he's doing. He's an idiot. He's stupid. He's orange. He's a pig. But they don't. They haven't said that what he's doing is the travel ban. That was not unconstitutional. That was entirely legal. It was the judiciary that behaved unconstitutionally, thereby denying him. He's got federal statutory law behind him 100% in that travel ban that liberal judges tried to stop. So I think he's on pretty safe ground in that area. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Yesterday on this program, grab sound bites 2 and 3. Yesterday on this program, We revisited my thoughts from February on DACA, the Dreamer Kids, in which I said it might be useful to go ahead and let them stay in exchange legislatively for other important immigration news, including the wall and so forth, and replayed that yesterday. It turns out that on a Fox News Channel special report with Brett Baer during the All-Star panel, he got Charlie Hurt, Jonah Goldberg at National Review, and Anna Palmer from Politico, and they were talking about my take on Trump's decision to end DACA. And Brett Baer got the discussion going this way.
Here's how Rush Limbaugh characterized this today on his radio show.
What Trump did today via Sessions, it's almost along the same lines as pulling out of the Paris Accords. It's rocked them. They didn't think it would ever happen. Trump is not this callous. Trump is not this cold-hearted. But Trump, Rush Limbaugh's base. And he knows the impact all of this has had on the American economy and American jobs. And he's following through on one of his most predominant campaign commitments. Now, all three panelists echoed a point that I made yesterday, that all of this is unheard of in Washington because Washington goes so slow. Here's Charlie Hurt reacting.
Both of them kind of rolls a grenade with the pin pulled into Congress because, of course, it is going to be very difficult for Congress to do something about this. But that just goes to show, I mean, this is a very low bar that we're asking of them. Republicans are now in control, and Republicans have come out today talking about how important it is to do something about this. My goodness, we all agree on this, then do something about it. It really does underscore, I think, Donald Trump isn't the one that did something wrong today. It's Congress.
See, the point is here that every one of these people think Trump dumping DACA over to Congress with a 6-month time frame is not going to happen. They can't move that fast. Congress can't move that fast. They got too many other things on the agenda. They got the fall agenda. They've got Hurricane Harvey relief. They're soon going to have Hurricane Irma relief. And then they've got the debt ceiling they have to live. They're going to fund the government. And they got to do the budget. They're not going to have time for this. And the theory is that Trump knows this. And I'm just suggesting, what if they make time for this? Look, folks, not predicting it, but I wouldn't be surprised if McConnell and Schumer in the Senate come together. You know what? Let's do this, Mitch. And let's do this, Chuck. Let's do it. And then they get with Ryan and they pass a bill that amnestizes the dockers. And they send that back to Trump. See, Charlie Hurt and the rest of the panel do not think Washington moves that fast. That Trump's just out flanking them, and he's making Congress look bad, not him. Here's what Jonah Goldberg had to say.
I honestly don't see how they can get all of it done. Congress does not do a very good job of making good legislation when it has a lot of time on its hands. This is like a bad episode of MacGyver where they've got to get the bomb defused, and they're still 10 miles away from the bomb, and they only got 5 minutes to get there. I don't know how this is going to play itself out.
And here's the reporterette from the Politico, Anna Palmer.
Congress rarely acts unless it has to. That has been kind of the way that has been working and operating for the last several years. So as much talk as we're talking about DACA right now and Dreamers, I wouldn't expect anything to get done until right at that 6-month period where it's kind of you either have to vote on something or...
So all three guests, there's no way Congress doesn't move fast enough. 6 months is not nearly enough time. So Trump is demonstrating that Congress can't get anything done. He's going to have to do it himself. But traditionally, that's correct. What if they do decide to come together? Because they both want it. They both, Republicans, Democrats, and Congress, want to amnestize the dockers. What if they do it and send that back to Trump? But nobody's thinking about that, but you wait. Headline in the Washington Post, Trump testing the loyalty of media boosters, people in the media who support him, by fudging his promise on DACA. I have details coming up. And lots more, my friends, on the fastest 3 hours in media. Don't go anywhere. By the way, I appreciate all of you people that are heading out there on social media correcting these nattering nabobs of negativism out there who were spreading lies and deceit about me and what I said yesterday on this program. Apparently there's an army of people out there correcting this stuff. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Bunch of loco weeds. They don't even listen to the program, and they don't even go to my website. They get most of it from Media Matters. And then they oh my God, I can't believe he did it. And then they start writing their brilliant pieces about it without even, this is my point. All of on the left, there's no curiosity. There's no openness. There's no tolerance. But it's the lack of curiosity that is the real thing. When I'm curious about everything. I don't believe anything, very little of anything the first time I see it. And I always try to find out what's behind it or what it means or what is meant. Some people can't even write what they intend to say. You got to read it 3 or 4 times before you figure it out. But it's the lack of curiosity of these people, and it's all because of their inbred bigotry and bias. They already think whatever it is they think of me. And so when they're told that I have said anything that causes a knee-jerk reaction, there's no curiosity about it. There's just blanket, bigoted acceptance of it. And then they rush to their computers and start typing their outraged responses to it. These are supposedly educated people, supposedly enlightened and very intelligent, broad-minded, and they're none of those things. They are the lack of curiosity is the big thing. And it's, as I say, it's just totally overwhelmed by whatever their biases are. Now, I mentioned earlier in the program that one of my favorite reads during the football season is Tuesday Morning Quarterback by Greg Easterbrook. It originally appeared on what was called Page 2 at ESPN. And then Easterbrook got fired for some innocuous, stupid reason like I had to resign for at ESPN about I forget what it was, but it was ridiculous. He moved on, and his piece ran then at the New York Times for a year or two. Now it's at the Weekly Standard. And in it, it's every Tuesday, and it's about the NFL and a little about college football. But he interposes every week, like he's a big outer space buff, big astronomy buff. So he puts in the latest news on those things. And he's a huge data analyst. So he throws in political observations and cultural observations in the middle of a football column. I can't imagine how long it takes him to write this thing. I mean, it's omnivorous, voluminous. It's very lengthy. And in the premiere issue or column yesterday for the opening of the NFL season, what he always focuses on is predictions. You know, every sports personality, every website, every network has their people that come on and they predict who's going to win opening weekend, who's going to be in the Super Bowl, and he thinks it's all bunk. Easterbrook thinks that it's nothing but wild guesses. And he offers as evidence all of the big data analysis that was used to assure everybody that Hillary Clinton not only was going to win, but that Donald Trump never even had a chance. And I read through this last night, and I've got some excerpts here I want to share with you. And it added another layer of understanding to me of why these people are so deranged. And then when I watched the opening episode of American Horror Story last night, after having read Tuesday Morning Quarterback, I mean, it was like he predicted the opening scene of this premiere episode, because it was, I can't describe it. You have to watch it. It's a bunch of people watching election returns on Fox, and they're hysterical. They're crying. They're hugging each other. They think they're going to die. A gay couple think Trump is going to come look for them and kill them. And they're cursing Nate Silver, and they're cursing CNN, and they're cursing the Huffington Post for lying to them. And let me share with you just a little of what Easterbrook wrote. Here's a fast-forward version of 538 prediction. Remember, his purpose here is to debunk all of these Super Bowl predictions as nobody knows anything. It's impossible to do. It's a waste of time. It's fun, but nobody can in any way possibly know. And he's exactly right about it. Here's a fast-forward version of 538. That's Nate Silver's website. Remember, he was at New York Times, and somebody offered him more money. ESPN, incidentally. And 538's where he went, and that's where he does his work now. Fast-forward version of 538 predictions about the presidential vote. In June of 2016, Silver said Hillary had an 80.2% likelihood of winning. Not 80, but 80.2. You see, you put 80.2, and it conveys sophistication. It conveys super knowledge. It conveys authenticity. And then he says ESPN's computer predicts the Steelers are going to win 10.1 games. He says, what's the 9/10 of a game they're going to lose? What do you mean 10.1 games? There's no such thing. By July 24th, just a month later, Silver had Clinton down from 80.2 chance of winning to 58.3. 2 days later, July 26th, she was down to 53.3. A week later, Clinton had zoomed back to 79.9% likelihood of winning. That's a rapid rise, perhaps owing to 538's infamous adjustments. By late August, Silver had Clinton at 87.7% likely to win. By mid-September, she was down to 66.8%. By mid-October, she's back to 82.2%. The day before the vote, the website said that Clinton had a 68.5% win probability. The morning of the election, it was 71.4%. And there were more than that. That's just a fast-forward version of the all-over-the-place 538 predictions. He says this is a gloss, but you get the idea. 538 had Clinton's odds rising and falling on a nearly daily basis, as if the election were NASDAQ. Though it's extremely difficult to believe that there were bona fide alterations in voter sentiment. Exactly. People don't change their minds that often. What was this? I've even made that point here on presidential polling. People just don't change their minds this fast. And I've made the point that a presidential poll in July of the summer before the election is worthless. It's meaningless. But you know the people in the media live and die by them because they are the source of news. Polling data and now big analytic data analysis has become a source of news. And so the more of it, the better. Why is Hillary dropping from 68% likelihood to 49%? She didn't, because she was never at 68, because there's nobody who could know. But Silver wasn't alone. The New York Times, cable news channels, the Huffington Puffington Post, and others offered an almost day-by-day series of presidential election speculations dressed up in graphics that made them seem to be the scientific discoveries of great researchers rather than what they were, guesses, however educated. In mid-July, the Times had Clinton with a 76% chance of victory. 6 days later, she fell to 69%. A month later, she's back to 87% in the morning, 88% in the afternoon. Millions of voters must have changed their minds at lunch. By mid-September, the New York Times had Clinton down to 79%, then down to 74% in mid-October. For the final week before the vote, the newspaper put Clinton at 84%. Now, the point is not that all these forecasts are wrong. Practically everyone was incorrect about the November 8th election except Rush Limbaugh. The point is that the prediction numbers on 538 and other places appear to be the result of deep dives into data. They weren't. They're nothing but darts on a board exercises, gussied up with charts and graphs and squiggly lines to make them professorial. Even on election night, the New York Times had their little percentage dial there, and at 6 o'clock, Hillary Clinton had an 80% chance of winning. At 6:30, she had a 78% chance of winning. At 7 o'clock, she said 75% chance of winning. So what is this? Votes had already been cast in most places. How can this be? They haven't counted the votes yet. These places. What is this? And it was gobbledygook. I think Nate Silver had her at a 90% chance of winning at some point election night. Now, did the public impression of a scientifically proven, certain Clinton walk-away win convince many people to not bother voting? We'll never know for sure, but it seems plausible among the data-conscious young whose miserable turnout, 46% of those 18 to 29 voted. 71% of seniors voted. Easterbrook theorizes here that the low turnout, 18 to 29, was because these millennials love big data. They just are into it. And the big data was telling them that Hillary was going to win this thing in a walkover. It was going to be a smear. It was going to be Trump barely going to get 20%. Hillary was just going to cream everybody. So why vote? I mean, it's already in the bag. The Princeton Election Consortium, which is only loosely associated with Princeton, said just before the vote that Clinton was more than 95% assured of victory, with an 83.5% chance that Clinton would carry Wisconsin, which, of course, she lost. These and other faux, precise predictions could have sounded like assurance that there was no need to get out and vote. That's his theory. And it may be, in the case of some people. The situation became so ridiculous that the Huffing and Puffington Post, which shortly before the vote called Clinton 98% likely to win, angrily denounced 538 because of Nate Silver's caution that a Trump win was not out of the question. Silver, in every projection that showed Hillary even at 90%, had this little proviso that there's still a pathway for Trump to win, and that so ticked them off at the Huffing and Puffington Post that they posted an angry denouncement of Silver for even alluding to the possibility. Now we know what happened. And in fact, there was a story in the New York Times on November 10th, shortly after the election, how data failed us in calling an election. It was a rough night for numbers crunchers and for the faith that people in every field, business, politics, sports, and academia, have increasingly placed in the power of big data. Trump's victory ran counter to almost every forecast except for Rush Limbaugh's, undercutting the belief that analyzing reams of data can accurately predict events. Dr. Pradeep Mudalik, research scientist at the Yale Center for Medical Informatics. You know what? Next time I need to go to the hospital, I'm going to say, take me to the informatics division. The what? Yeah, I want to go where they do all the big data crunching. That's where the answers are. The Yale Center for Medical Informatics. Not information, but informatics. You know, his guy's name, Dr. Pradeep Mudalik, said it's the overselling of precision. Virtually all the major forecasters, including Nate Silver's 538, the New York Times Upshot, and the Princeton Consortium, put Clinton's chances of winning in the 70 to 99% range. I have made the point countless times that one of the biggest problems in politics is that people believe the media. Republicans, too. They believe all this pre-election stuff. They believe these polls, but the people on the left really, they live and die by Nate Silver, folks. They live and die by him. And they bought it hook, line, and sinker. They went into election night thinking it didn't matter. No matter what else, the size of Trump's crowds, none of it mattered because they believed all the polls. They believed all this data. They believed all this expertise, which Easterbrook is right. It's nothing but really dressed up wild guesses. And that's one of the reasons that I believe now that they are still not normal. I think they still are insane and crazy. They trust the media implicitly. That's why when I come along and question anything about it, I am public enemy number one, hated and despised. They trust it. It's gospel. New York Times is gospel. Nate Silver is gospel. And they got not just wrong, they were promising the left that Hillary wasn't just going to win, that Trump was going to be so embarrassed he wouldn't even show up and concede in person. It's how humiliating the defeat was going to be. Well, we know what happened. Now they think the polling was still right, but the Russians stole the election from. This is how this stuff has a life. They will believe the absolute weirdest conspiracy theories because they believe that what are wild guesses are actually advanced scientific truth. So they invest in it totally. They invest emotionally. This is key. They emotionally invest everything they've got in this stuff. And they can't handle the consequence when they are betrayed. And they're still trying to come to grips with it. I think it's a big factor. Whether it suppressed voter turnout or not, who knows? I have to take a break, but there's much more. There always is. Okay, I saw this news alert from the Wall Street Journal about 10 minutes ago. Here's the headline. Trump and Democrats agree to debt limit increase and Harvey aid package. Trump, Democrats agree. Trump has sided with the Democrats on the debt ceiling. Well, but Republicans are right in there, too. I mean, it's not on the sidelines. And he says that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi want to pass DACA. We have two sound bites. Here is Trump aboard Air Force One.
We had a very good meeting with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. We agreed to a 3-month extension on debt ceiling, which they consider to be sacred, very important. Always will agree on debt ceiling automatically because of the importance of it. Also on the CRs and also on Harvey, which now we're going to be adding something because of what's going on in Florida. We had a very good meeting.
He had a great meeting with Chuck Schumer and Pelosi. They agreed to a 3-month extension and a debt ceiling, which they consider to be sacred, very important. Always we will agree on the debt ceiling automatically, the president said, because of the importance of it. Also the continuing resolution, the budget, and on Harvey, which we're now going to have to do something to. And the reporter said, what do you say to people who say there are mixed signals coming from the White House over DACA and the Dreamers?
Congress, I really believe, wants to take care of the situation. Really believe it. Even very conservative members of Congress, I've seen it firsthand. If they don't, we're going to see what we're going to do. But I will tell you, I really believe Congress wants to take care of it. We discussed that also today. And Chuck and Nancy would like to see something happen, and so do I. And I said, if we can get something to happen, we're going to sign it, and we're going to make a lot of happy people.
Now, look, wait a second here. Now, you folks, Donald Trump, I don't care what you've believed about him. He's not an idiot. He's not a buffoon. He's not a pig. The fact that he praised Pelosi and Schumer repeatedly in a press gaggle aboard Air Force One and did not speak at all, much less affectionately, of Ryan and McConnell. That's the real message of these sound bites. I mean, the fact that Pelosi and Schumer love DACA, yeah, no surprise. The fact they want to raise the debt ceiling, no surprise. The fact that Trump thinks, oh, yeah, we got to raise the debt ceiling. We're going to do that all the time. It's crucially important. That may come as a surprise. But Trump's never been a small government conservative. And I never told anybody he was. Okay, first it was the Trump soundbites praising Pelosi and Schumer on the debt ceiling. Hurricane Harvey claiming the debt ceiling being raised. That's important. We're going to do that every time. We'll always agree on that. And we're going to have to do even more with hurricanes because of Hurricane Irma, what's happening out there. And then he says, Nancy and Chuck really want to do something on DACA. And now on TV, there's Chuck. announcing a deal. The Democrats don't run anything. Chuck is on TV announcing victory on a spending debt deal and hurricane relief. It's like Chuck Schumer is running Congress. There's not a Republican to be seen anywhere. And when Trump got with his press gaggle on Air Force One, there wasn't any mention of Mitch McConnell or Paul Ryan, nor Scaramucci, nor anybody else. And now there's what's his face, Dick Turban, and the headline of Fox: Democrat leaders talk debt deal. They've got a deal on the debt limit. They've got a deal on hurricane relief, and they've got a deal, and on the debt ceiling, continuing resolution, and hurricane. Now you put that together with these true. Oh, there's Mitch. There's Mitch, and there's some senators standing behind him. And I don't know what Mitch is saying, and they're not headlining what Mitch is saying. Snurdly, look at what in the heck is going on? I don't know, man, but maybe the Republicans are out looking for the Earth's clitoris, from that eco-sex story earlier. I'm sorry to do that. If you weren't listening in the first hour, you may think I'm being irresponsible. That's a genuine story. Ecosexual professor spurs movement. Have sex with Earth to save it. It's a UC Santa Cruz professor who claims that the Earth's clitoris is in Germany. Excuse me. But you see, that's why you need to be listening here all the time to be able to keep things in context. Some people think I just threw that in there, and what is he saying? And if you've been here since the beginning of the program, it all makes sense. Trump, here's the CNN headline: Trump bucks GOP, sides with Democrats on raising debt limit. And now Mitch is at the microphones. I don't know what he's saying. We'll get a report on it. Hey, let me get back to the phones. Oh, wait. I have an objective media lesson here. Some of you may have heard this about Hurricane Irma. My example here comes from USA Today, formerly Nicotine Stained Fingers. Here's the headline. Tell me if you've heard this. Hurricane Irma is so strong it's registering on seismographs. For those of you in Rio Linda, seismograph is what measures earthquakes. Hurricane Irma is so strong it's registering on devices designed to detect earthquakes. Now, this is what is called media inflation, because this is not new. This has happened many times. What we're seeing in the seismograph are low-pitched hums that gradually become stronger as the hurricane gets closer to the seismometer on the island of Guadeloupe, said Stephen Hicks, seismologist, University of Southampton in the UK. The hurricane is not creating earthquakes. Earthquakes occur tens of miles deep inside the Earth's crust, a long way from the surface of the ocean. There's no evidence to suggest that hurricanes and storms directly cause earthquakes, but when they tell you that this baby, wow, it is so powerful, it's showing up on... So a lot of hurricanes have. This isn't news. This is precisely my point. Many hurricanes show up on seismographs. But because they've said this is the most powerful hurricane ever. Folks, some of the cyclones that hit Europe, run into Taiwan, Japan, some of those things have been unlike anything we've seen. The Pacific storms that reach into Asia, just horrible. And have for a long time, long before people started talking about climate change. But now they've got this Hurricane Irma out there, and it's the strongest ever. It's the worst ever. It's the baddest ever hurricane. So it follows, since we've inflated this hurricane story. Let's add to it. Let's make people think it's causing earthquakes in the ocean. It's not, and it's not the first hurricane to show up on a seismograph. But if you don't know that, this is going to sound like, oh, man, Myrtle, you believe this? I mean, this has to be worse than anything ever. Media says, yep, that's exactly what we want you to think. Here's Guy in Likely, California. Is that right, Guy? Is that where you are?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, where is that?
Northeastern corner of the state on 395.
Ah, northeastern corner. Great to have you. Thank you.
Yes, Megadettos from the high desert of Northern California.
You got it.
Yes, on a lighter or hotter note, this eco-sex topic is amazing. How you stumbled onto the truth after all this time. And it turns out CO2 is just a patsy. And these folks are running around doing their things with the earth, getting it all hot and bothered. Just explains lots of various issues out there. All this uptick in volcanic activity and tremors around. Thank goodness it's all localized effects, or we'll be in big trouble with a big one.
All right. So Guy's theory, folks, if you haven't heard the story, I'm kind of you're a little bit at disadvantage here, but may as well do it again because I'm sure a lot of you missed this. 4 years ago, an art professor, Elizabeth Stevens, filmed a documentary, Ecosexual Love Story, in which she and her partner licked trees, played with mud, and made love with the environment while naked. The term ecosexuality was still somewhat unknown, but since Google has helped, everybody now knows what ecosexuality is, and it has expanded geometrically in the last 12 months. The interest can be traced in part to this babe, Elizabeth Stevens, the professor, UC Santa Cruz, and a leader in the movement that calls for having sex with a tree or marrying the ocean or engaging in something called grassolingus, which involves musicians laying face down in the grass and licking it. She also alludes to the fact she led EcoSex walking tour in Germany that offered 20. This is just the past summer. I mean, just in the last couple of months. That offered 25 ways to make love to the earth, raise awareness of environmental issues, and learn eco exercises. Find E-spots, not G, spot G, C, E-spots, and climax with the planetary clitoris for those of you in Rio Linda, according to a description of the event on the UC Santa Cruz website. So Guy's theory here is that CO2 is a patsy, that all of this sex with the planet that these feminazis are engaging in is actually what's causing the Earth to kind of heat up. So I just went to one of the hurricane modeling pages that I study, and I hit refresh, and one model run has changed. There'll be, in fact, they all ran at 2 p.m. So the latest model run should be showing up imminently. But there was one change in the graph I saw. The UK Met model, which is depicted in blue, not the Euro Ensemble. This is a single model run. The UK Meteorological Office moved in exact alignment with the National Hurricane Center track forecast. It's eerie. Now, I don't know when the UK Met model run happened. It was reported at 1800 Zulu, which is 2 p.m. our time. So that would be 50 minutes ago, and less than an hour ago. But it just posted at the place. Point for point, right where the Hurricane Center track is. Most of the models are still some distance offshore to the east. And we shall continue. Here's what Mitch McConnell said. Folks, this has been an incredible 20 minutes. The Democrats are claiming victory with Trump on the debt ceiling, on hurricane funding, and a continuing resolution through next next November. And Trump's praising Pelosi. He's praising Chuck Schumer. And they're out there claiming victory. And bringing up the rear, Mitch McConnell went to the microphones. He said the president and the Senate and House Democrat leadership agreed to a 3-month continuing resolution and a debt ceiling into December. I'll be adding that as an amendment to the flood relief bill that's come over from the House floor, and I'll be supporting it. Now, the Republicans run the place. The Republicans run the House. The Republicans run the Senate. Trump made a deal with the Democrats. Only have, what do Democrats have? 48 votes. Republicans have 52. Democrats made a deal with Trump. Democrats announced the deal, claiming victory. Mitch McConnell was left to come to the microphones later. You knew this was going to happen. This is Trump siding with the Democrats. I've got to be frustrated that the Republicans are blocking him on things. It's just, he didn't threaten to do it. He didn't whisper it. It just happened. Well, that's it for today, folks. Sadly, out of time. Had some things on today's show. Doubt that you'll hear anywhere else. Did them in respectful and refined ways. And we'll take a 21-hour break and be back here revved and ready to go tomorrow. As always, thanks more than you know for being here and for staying here and for being here tomorrow, at which time we will see you again.